Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Cage Talk. Today, my guest is the announcer of all announcer. We have Mike Goldberg. How you doing, Mike?
I'm really, really good, Alex. And you're a Devils fan, so you're in the Eastern Conference. I'm a Sharks fan, Western Conference. I think our expectations realistically are about the same this season.
Pretty much.
We just want to get in the top 8, we hope. But we digress. We move along. Thank you for the kind words, my friend. Pleasure to be on with you.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, watched you since the very beginning. Again, always a pleasure to have, to watch you grow into the sport. When you started with, broadcasting and stuff like that, we're going to talk a little bit, dive into your career. Yeah. And obviously you're doing bare knuckle, and we'll obviously get into that in a little bit. But what got you into broadcasting? Was it something you always wanted to do? Is there a certain sport you wanted to cover, or was it you kind of like to do everything?
I was always a singer and an entertainer, if you will, and a hockey player. So in 8th grade, I was in rock concerts in high school. So I guess it was my freshman year. 9th grade, we went to Channel 8 in Cleveland, and it was way back, probably before you were born. The Jerry Lewis Telethon used to have local acts, Alex, and we were one of the local acts. And so after we performed at Channel 8 in Cleveland, I watched them do the news that night, and I watched the sportscaster. It was Vince Cellini, who's obviously had a great career. And I was like looking at the prompter, and I'm going, wow, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. That's what I want to do. And honestly, I was really blessed because there are a lot of great kids out there who are in college getting great grades, and they don't know exactly what they want to do for a living yet, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But I was really blessed that I had that tunnel vision. So I stayed playing hockey, played college hockey. But I mean, my freshman orientation at Miami of Ohio, I went to the radio station. And I got a job. I was a board op, NPR, for I think it was $2 an hour. Wow. But at the top and bottom of the hour, I got to do the 30-second weather. And everybody in our dorm in Anderson Hall, everybody in the dorm would turn on 88.5. And I'd be like, the weather in the WMUB listening area, partly cloudy, 89 degrees, chance of showers. This is 88.5 WMUB, public radio, Oxford, Ohio. And I thought I was shit. I mean, and all the boys are like, dude, we recorded it. Somebody up there, Jim Haskins was his name. He said, hey, you're pretty good. And I just stayed with it. I got an internship at Channel 5 in Cincinnati. And the rest is kind of history. But I've done pretty much every sport. Before I got into, I always joke, guys and girls in their underwear and cages throwing down in combat sports. But I've been very blessed to do a lot of different things. I'm a hockey player. I did about 900 games in the NHL, Alex, and an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. I mean, I remember, I didn't call the game, but man, I can remember the Scott Stevens hit on Paul Correa, right now. And I also remember that Correa scored the overtime goal, and I was like, dang, kid. Devils ended up winning.
Yep.
But that hit, I mean, he just blew him up. And then, watching Kenny Danico, a guy I'm sure you admire on NHL Network, and of course brings back great memories. But that's how it all started, is I was a singer and an athlete, and they just went, boom, and I became a broadcaster.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep.
Very nice. That's cool. And again, Scott Stevens, one of the all-time greats. I loved him. I love Scott Gomez as well. Scott Gomez.
Yes. Good Alaskan boy.
Yeah, you know it.
Good American. Yes.
We could have I could have a whole section on just hockey, and
I've been on a few podcasts where and it's my fault, but you and I talked before we got on the air about, you saw my Joe Thornton jersey. Yep. He will always be a Shark, by the way, in my heart. I see, obviously, your Devils flag behind you.
Yep.
And so it's kind of our fault, if you will. But, yeah, we'll do the next version. The next week that we get together, it'll be NHL Talk.
There we go.
Because we saw ESPN debut. And then I don't know if you watched TNT last night.
I didn't.
Oh, my gosh. The desk. Liam McHugh I'm a big fan of anyway. But Gretzky, Paul Bissonnette, Busy is so funny. And he's from here in Arizona. I live in Arizona now. in Phoenix. Rick Tockett, my second favorite flyer after Bobby Clark. I wore 16 my entire life, as did my brother and my son. And then you add into the mix, you know, Anson Carter. It was absolutely awesome. They had the same type of humor that they have in basketball. Chuck made an appearance. Barkley came on, and he actually played goalie. And Brett took like 5 shots on him. It was a really fun show. So good for TNT. Nice to see it back on ESPN. But TNT's going to kill it. And that studio crew, if they keep it light humored like they did last night,
then that should be good.
I'm not going to go and take breaks between periods. I'm going to go and take breaks during the game.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Now let's dive into your career. What was your first? I'm trying to think. Your first how did you land the UFC? What brought you to the UFC? And did you know anything about it? Because again, I think you started, I think it was Ultimate Japan, right? Is when you started?
That's correct. That's correct. December 21st, 1997. Randy, the Natural Couture, beat Maurice Smith to win the UFC Heavyweight Championship. And a guy named Frank Shamrock made his UFC debut and finished Kevin Jackson, an Olympian from Michigan State. Finished Kevin Jackson, I want to say in about 21 seconds by armbar, like, boom! And Frank was on the map. That was it. And it was an absolute blast. Jeff Blatnick, the Olympic gold medalist, may he rest in peace, was my broadcast partner. But we're going to go back to hockey because I have to, because that's how it happened. I was doing ESPN hockey. Bruce Connell, my dearest friend, lost him a couple of years ago, way too young. Still tough for me to talk about. In fact, I was really emotional 2 nights ago because they did a lot of things on ESPN with the theme, you know, and that's how Brucey and I met through ESPN hockey. So Bruce's father, Scotty Connell, is on the Mount Rushmore of ESPN. Brucey was one of my hockey producers when I did hockey for the network on ESPN. And Concom, still to this day, Concom was doing the UFC. Bruce Beck, who preceded me, got a full-time job at NBC in New York. You probably watched Bruce. You know what I'm talking about on Channel 4. So Bruce couldn't freelance anymore. And Brucey Connell said, Goldie, got a gig for you. It's in Japan. You got to pick a jiu-jitsu class. I'm like, gig, this, that. They're like, what is jiu-jitsu? You know, I'm half Jewish, half Irish Catholic. Okay. All right, I'll figure it out when I get there. So I went, that's the first time I've used that joke. That's not a bad one, actually.
That's actually pretty good. I'll give you that one.
So that's how it started. It really was Brucey, knowing my energy, knowing that I would study and that we would have a lot of fun doing it. We had a great relationship. Bruce, like I said, man, I 20 years, 19 years of the UFC with Bruce. It was an absolute honor. And he had my back, I had his back, and we grew with the sport together. Going in, I didn't know much, but I don't know that anybody knew too much at that point. At the time, because we were still kind of, 2 men will enter the octagon, only one will leave. And Blatz was really heavy wrestling. So Maurice Smith, the kickboxer, I mean, Jeff Blatnick, and I love him, but Blatz, he couldn't care less about that. He was like, Randy Couture is a wrestler. And Jeff was right. I'll tell you one thing that I will never, ever do again. It came on the air one time, and yes, I have blooper reels, of course. But I said, and my partner, Jeff Blatnick, the former Olympic gold medalist, and Blatz goes to me, like, not on the air. He goes, "You're never a former Olympic gold medalist." And I'm like, "No, you're not. You're not. That's true." I was like, so every time it's Cejudo or Ronda, it's never former. It is the Olympic gold medalist, the Olympic bronze medalist. And if you look back at all of my UFCs, I've never said former Ultimate Fighter winner, because you're never a former Ultimate Fighter winner. You are the season 1 Ultimate Fighter winner, either Diego or obviously Forrest. Ryan Bader, season 5, and you go on down the line. So yeah, Blatz, big dude, he just looked at me and goes, "Hey, never a former Olympic gold medalist." I'm like, that will be the last time I ever make that mistake, Chad.
Yeah, I mean, you never, maybe I guess you don't catch it like so quickly, because it just happens so fast. But I mean, you're right. Like, The former, I never realized that. That's something I had to look back at. That's funny though.
Yeah.
But I mean,
right? It's like, okay, you could be, you're a former a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
Like, but five-time Super Bowl champion.
Pro bowler, former pro.
Right,
like stuff like that.
Exactly. But you're never a former Olympic anything.
So when you took the jiu-jitsu class, what was it, just like basic, just to kind of understand, like?
You're assuming I took that class, right?
Oh.
Yes, it was very basic. It was basically in a conference room in the Palace Hotel in Shin, Yokohama, Japan. This was my first lesson. And Big John McCarthy, Big John, lays on his back. Blatnick's right there cracking up. He goes, "Hey, get over here, kid." I'm like, whoa, dude. I'm a hockey player, right? And I'm like, "Hey, you didn't buy me a drink. You didn't buy me dinner. Like, you want to snuggle right now? Like, dude, what's up with this?" Like, John in his big brother way, which 25 years later, I guess we're getting close to, he still says, "Get your ass down here." It bosses me around because that's John, because he's bossy. He knows that. And he got down and he said, "All right, here's the guard, here's the half guard, here's mount, here's this position and that." And so he gave me the basics, the EBCs, if you will. And I always tell this story that he put his arm around my neck and he just cranked a teeny bit. And they told me how it's no Roberto Duran, no Moss, there's no shame in tapping. It's just checkmate.
Yeah.
And I was checking out right away. Right away. And the 3,000 times that my powerful partner, Joe Rogan, said, "Well, it's not under the chin, so he won't tap." I have these flashes back to bullshit. This fight would have been over a long time ago. We'd be on to the next. But that's how it all started. I really, my most passionate part of MMA and my training is Muay Thai. I've done a ton of Muay Thai. I love striking. Trained with crew Mark Delagrati extensively. Mark really took me under his wing and it taught me things. Paul McGowan, who is my trainer here, has worked with me. But I did that, and I did facets of jiu-jitsu to learn the basics, because a 1 is a 1 and a 2 is a 2 and a slip is a slip. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't mean I can do it like the people that are inside the octagon, inside the Bellator cage, or now the Trigon and bare knuckle, but I wanted to know what it was like, and it really was helpful. And Delagrati was in the truck for a long time as an advisor to like what replays, and Eddie Bravo did it before Mark did.
Yeah.
So 2 factors here, Alex. First, I'm with like B-Man, Joe Rogan. It's kind of like working with John Madden. Why would I even try to pretend to like break down Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Okay. That would be silly. You got to know, like Pat Summerall played in the NFL, but he still never really talked about the X's and O's. He's next to the expert. So let Joe handle that. I mean, that's my job. Secondly, the Muay Thai, I would get to points where I'd go, "Watch for that teep. He's using the teep. Oh, he's setting up the high kick." And then he, boom, he'd throw it. I'd be like, "Yeah." And Delagrati get in my ear. He goes, "That's my boy. That a baby, Goldie. That a baby." So I really enjoy the art of 8 limbs and seeing it all come together. And I had times where I was like, Mark was always awesome. We would be in workout rooms and fighters would come in. Jacare one time, I'll never forget Rampage. And Mark would work on combos that I knew a lot and was good at. And I could throw kicks because of strong lower body with hockey. My kicks were pretty solid. I mean, they probably are now, but that was 15 years ago. And anytime Mark was working on something new, if somebody walked in, like let's say Alex the Iceman, because it's behind your shoulder, Alex the Iceman walks in, Crew Mark would go into one that I was really good at. Boom, 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 elbow, boom, 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 make you look good. Rampage goes, "Damn, Goldie, don't ever kick me." And I'm like, "Damn, Rampage, don't ever slam me." And so I did, and it was cool because it was a fun compliment, but I earned respect from the fighters because they saw that I was training. Definitely. And in so doing, I was looking to learn more about the sport.
Got you. Now, was there anyone that you in particular, like fighter wise, that you got, you know, semi like close to and like built a really, really good relationship by any chance?
Oh yeah, multiple guys that I was extremely close to. One that a real special friendship that I had was with Patrick Cote, and still do have with Patrick Cote. Just love Patrick Cote. He trained with Mark a lot, but just everything about him, he's a fun guy. And he used to always be like, and then I hit him with the elbows. Like, no, you hit him with the elbows. And then I'd be like, oh, tonight you fought awesome. Anyway, Patrick and I became very close, trained together. But anytime there was a show in Montreal, I would stay a few extra days and stay with Patrick and his girlfriend at the time. And my ex-wife, we would hang out. And we would get all the Canadian snacks. We would get coffee crisp, ketchup chips, all dressed chips. You know, and we would watch Dumb and Dumber.
There you go.
Every time, man, win or lose, win or lose. So very, very great relationship with Patrick Cote. Obviously very close with Ryan Bader. He lives here in town. Spend a lot of time with Ryan. BJ Penn and I have been extremely tight. Rumble is a guy who, I mean, that man, for as tough as he is as kind and gentle a soul in my relationship with him as anybody I know. And there's a lot of them I love. So I'm leaving some out, but not purposely.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got you.
I don't break down the whole roster because
there's
a lot of guys I like. I had done my last UFC, and then I had that famous shot in the stands in Phoenix, which I don't know how that happened, but it did. But the next Rumble fight, he won, and I'm watching the pay-per-view at home. And he says this and that, and he goes, you know what, I'd really like to give a shout out to my buddy Goldie. He's missed. I love him. He's great at what he does. And I was like, because I'm thinking Uncle Dana's going to, Rumble's going to get his butt kicked.
Yeah.
He's going to get in trouble. And I mean, it pretty much brought me to tears, Alex, because for Rumble to think of me at that time,
that moment,
it's with that moment and that emotion after that victory, it's one of those things that I will never forget. And my relationship with Anthony Rumble Johnson is spectacular. I know he's battling some health issues right now. He was supposed to be fighting Saturday here in Phoenix. Scott Coker called me. I'm going. It was cool that, Scott reached out. He's like, Goldie, you're coming, right? I'm like, you tell me, Scott. I got 4 VVIPs for you. I go, well, I can, you get a little, no, I'm good at that. Because that really was a network thing. So Coker and I do have a great relationship. And I wish Anthony was fighting, needless to say, but I'm excited to see Ryan in a main event here at home. And obviously Corey always brings it. So it's going to be a fun night, and I'll be able to see some people from Bellator that I haven't seen for a while.
Definitely, man. And like you said, like there are moments, like you said, when he gave you a shout out.
Yeah.
Is there any other moments, especially, well, obviously you work for other organizations, but right now we're talking about UFC. For the UFC, maybe like one of the greatest fights in your opinion that you were commentating on.
Absolutely. I'll give you another moment too, and I'm looking at the poster over my screen over here. UFC 91, Saturday, November 15th. I'm trying to remember the year. It was my 100th UFC.
Oh, really?
And it was Randy and Brock.
Oh.
And we had a big party afterwards. But that week, it was at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, and they had the press conference like right in the lobby. And they're asking Randy all these questions. And what else are you excited about? And Randy goes, I'm excited for my buddy Goldie. My buddy Goldie's going to call his 100th UFC. And again, I'm thinking, okay, you're about to battle this monster.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's another great relationship that I've always had and I always will have is with Randy Couture. He was the first fight I called. And then my 100th ends up being Randy again. So, I mean, the natural is the greatest. But again, for him to think of me at that time, when everybody's gathered talking about the fight,
pre-fight week
was extremely cool. Pre-fight week, I'm excited for my buddy Goldie. He's going to call his 100th, and Randy came to the after party that was thrown for me for my 100th UFC. Had a couple of bumps from those big mailbox fists.
Yeah, those.
But it was really cool after that fight that Randy made his way over to share a moment with me that was very special in my 100th UFC.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so that was cool. Randy winning in Columbus was amazing, Alex, and for a couple of reasons. I'm an Ohio native.
Okay.
It was the first show in Ohio. Had a lot of family and friends there, and nobody expected it to happen. Tim Sylvia, Randy said they can't do it again, blah, 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 blah. It was amazing, right? Yeah. Randy comes out right away, bam, I'm doing the freaking clock promo. Tonight's clock brought to you by, and I'm like, oh shit. Joe's like, I'm like, and it's funny, over time, you know, Bruce and I, obviously in the truck, we try to time the promos that are in fights. Mm-hmm. To win, there's nothing happening.
Exactly.
But if all of a sudden something happened, Joe would like give me the like dirty look, like we did it on purpose. Like Joe, like first of all, yell at Brucey because he just told me to do the promo. But it's just something we had fun. But when that one was going on, honestly, at the very end of that fight, I felt like saying, "Do you believe in miracles?" I knew better than to say that because that one was coined in 1980, and so. That one would have been a little much, but the crowd in Columbus counted down, if you remember.
Yep.
As Randy held on to win and defeat Tim Sylvia to become once again the UFC heavyweight champion. That one was amazing. I always talk about the Sky Dome, the 80,000 in attendance, and Joe and I going, what the, like, this is crazy. Look it up the whole time. That's a memorable one. And then fight-wise, as Connor came on the scene, mm-hmm. That was obviously fun. Not just Connor's fights, but all the buildup, the weigh-ins. Like Madison Square Garden was jam-packed for the weigh-ins because of Connor. And you would have thought we were in Dublin, because I think we might have been. You know, I think Dublin rented out MSG. Yeah. Ronda was a highly anticipated fight, and when Liz took her back, mm-hmm. I'm thinking, oh man, this storyline's about to get ruined. Liz Carmouche is about to choke Ronda out.
Yeah, I remember.
And again, if you go back to me in Japan, like Liz would have won. So, you know, that was a crazy one. There were knockouts. Luke Rockhold, Michael Bisping. When Michael went on short notice, 27th UFC fight, he wins the title. It was the day after Muhammad Ali had passed, and Kevin Casey, Muhammad Ali's son-in-law, was on the card. Joe, that's the famous shot of Joe and I, like, that is posted out there. So that's a handful of them. I'll never forget Edson Barboza and poor Terry Adam, the way he went down. That's the most vicious. And, you know, I'd like to forget Corey Hill and, you know, Anderson's leg. But I will tell you, as far as excitement, Anderson's the man. Anderson was Bruce Lee. He is Bruce Lee. Yeah. And I'm not surprised what he's doing in boxing. Sorry, I'm not surprised. Yeah. He's a striker first. That's where people get confused with this. Mm-hmm. No disrespect to a Ben Askren or a T. Wood. Yeah. But you take a striker and now say two limbs, as opposed to a wrestler who's worked on his striking.
Exactly.
Very different. So there was always Anderson. But as far as excitement, anytime Rampage was walking towards that cage, I was like, something crazy could happen. Like somebody's gonna get knocked out. So Henderson, obviously, Shogun was huge. Shogun, another one of them, and Vanderlei the same way. Vanderlei the same way. We're gonna see viciousness, and I guess I can't forget the phenom, Vitor Belfort. If you talk about Vanderlei, because Sao Paulo, baby, that was epic. That was epic. So once again, not overly surprised. Obviously, late opponent change with Holyfield, but you know, he had the fastest hands in the UFC, and he still got probably the top 3 or 4 set up fastest hands in UFC history. So not surprised to see Vitor, if he's training and putting in the time, to have success in the sweet science as well.
Yeah, definitely. Who was your what was your relationship with Joe Rogan? What was your first interaction with him? Because as he was coming off of Fear Factor, no?
Yeah.
Right?
So Joe started before I did, but he was like the super fan, if you will. And so they would go to Joe and like so I got these tapes from Brucey, VHS, UFC 15 and 16, and Joe had hair. Joe was on news radio back then, and Joe was a super fan. So they would go to super fan Joe Rogan, and he would interview and talk about the fights and talk about his passion for the sport. Remember that?
Yep.
And then Joe wasn't really involved in it for a while, just because, just things changed. He got very busy with Fear Factor. And once Joe and I partnered up, the chemistry was instantaneous. Right. And there was, I always tell people, and yourself now, included, Alex, that we didn't do anything special. It's not like we did have a routine, I'll show you, before every fight, but we didn't have these, let's sit and break down the fights, or we have to have every meal together, and not in a negative or positive way, but man, we just, boom, we had the synergy. Mm-hmm. And we both had respect for each other and the sport, and we both loved it. And so my enthusiasm grew his enthusiasm, which grew my enthusiasm, which just made it a moment. Mm-hmm. So the one thing Joe and I would do before every show is everybody around us, Susie, our makeup girl, who we just lost as well. And she's like a little sister to me. I met her in the NFL back my college football days on Fox. Oh. And I actually was part of helping her get the UFC job. She kept it because of her, not me. But met Susie through DeMarco Farr, who was doing college football with me at the time, because they knew each other from St. Louis. But so we'd blow it up to everybody. And then Joe and I would blow it up, and then we go, woo, do the head tap that Joe always did. But we'd go, and then we'd tap each other's head. And he was always so like sweaty and like, because Joe's a guy's guy, like, don't put that makeup on me. I'm like, dude, cover that zit. Like, whatever you need to do, Susie, like, I'm like, do it. And I'd be like, when Joe's not looking, I'd kind of whip off my hand. But we always did that before every pay-per-view.
That was a routine?
And, absolutely 100%. It was blow it up. It was like, oh, and we'd go. It was awesome. I love that man. His passion for the sport is unbridled. His knowledge of the sport is as good as anyone's. And he has helped to make, not the UFC, he's helped to make MMA what it is today. And my time with him was an absolute honor. And we will always be friends. And we use the term powerful partners. We will always be powerful partners. And like you said, we never had to force anything. It was always very natural. That's what made it so cool.
Yeah, it just looked like two friends just talking, and that's the beauty of it. And then nothing wrong with the commentators now and stuff like that, and they're bringing fighters and stuff like that, which is nice. I had John Anik, which is another.
JA's a class act, man. I love JA.
Yeah, he's great and stuff like that. But you think of UFC commentating, and again, you see Joe Rogan, Mike Goldberg. That's me growing up. That's always going to be like that. It's like
I appreciate that.
Like that's what happens, And like I said, nothing wrong with the other.
No, and I give them all credit. Trust me, I'm not bitter guy. I understand, the business. I was, everybody thinks I was a victim of the sale. I was one of about 125 to 130 people who were victims of the sale, including every vice president. Because the first interest payment on $4.2 billion was $170 million. So I was a victim of my tenure as much as anything else. And everybody knows me because I had, the honor of being in front of the camera and in your living room. But, there are a lot of people walking out of the Zuffa building, from merchandise manager to social media, that were no less important than I was to the UFC and to Zuffa. And I've always felt that way. It was a tough time, and it was tough, I know, for Lorenzo to watch from afar, because we're a family. We were a family. But it just is it's a special ride, and the line that everybody says is Joe and I are the soundtrack of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And I'm like, yeah, that's a cool way to say it. And I trust me, I honor and I respect that. And I'm humbled by it every single day. And when I talk to people like yourself, who remind me of the appreciation, it means the world. And I mean that very, very sincerely.
Yeah, definitely. I had another gentleman who worked again with the UFC and then worked. I think now he's in Bellator. Is Burt Watson. Burt Watson was on.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
yep.
I think he's in Bellator now, right?
He is. He is. And he's working BYB Extreme as
There you
well.
go.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's
Yep.
awesome. So
Yep.
let's
So BWAT's
segue
awesome.
that
Yeah.
and let's talk about some, some BY, because that's it seems like that's what's taken off. If they do it right, if they do it correctly, they promote it correctly, they have the right fighters, which they do. I think it could be the next step. What do you think? And how did you get into it? What did you love about it?
I totally agree with you
Mhm.
that it's the next big thing. Now, you can't say it's the new thing because bare knuckle boxing is the oldest form of combat.
Yep.
Going back decades. So decades, centuries, really. But yeah, everybody loves the knockout, right? I mean, Dana used to say, fighting is in our DNA. He still says it. You got four corners right here. You got Scott Stevens on one side. You got Joe Thornton on the other. Tiger Woods hitting balls, or Michael Jordan shooting jumpers, and you got to fight. We're all going to go watch the fight.
Yeah.
And everybody loves a knockout. And so with bare knuckle, you have more finishes and you have more knockouts. Over the years, the MMA crowd understands, and Frank Mir's always been the perfect example, that a submission can be as vicious as a one-punch knockout. Ask Big Nog, ask Tim Sylvia, and thus my point. But this sport is the one that everybody is gravitating to now because of the forced confrontation, nowhere to hide. And with our BYB Extreme setup, the Trigon, three-sided cage, 22 by 22 by 22, nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Nowhere to hide. And martial artists still who have skill and go at it. And we had a 7-round fight in our women's championship, our first ever title. Christine Knuckles Stanley took on a girl named, a woman. I will tell you, Leslie Smith once said, "We are not girls, we are women." And Leslie, you're right. Patty Juarez. And Patty Juarez's sister, Barbie Juarez, is pretty much the Julio Cesar Chavez of boxing in Mexico.
Gotcha.
She's the female version of Mexican style boxing. And little sister won the bare knuckle title. They went 7 rounds, 7 2-minute rounds, and it was a war. And at the same time, so you've got big sister Barbie, and then Patty's our title holder. Baby sister was defending her title in Mexico at the same time. So I was on BoxRec on my phone, like trying to see what was up. So that's the kind of talent that we have. And the broadcast team that Mike Vasquez, our owner, has put together is awesome. My partner is Paulie Malignaggi, who's awesome, 2-time world champion. Paulie and I are really building a similar relationship to what Joe and I had. We're having fun. We just let each other do what we do. Al Bernstein is with us quite often. Al Bernstein was on the desk last show. A woman named Claudia Trejos. Anybody who knows boxing knows Claudia Trejos. She's done a ton of boxing over the years. She's done a ton of everything. Claudia hosted. Benny Ricardo's with us. Benny had an NFL game last time we had a show. But, to work with Paulie, and I'm not going to include myself because I'm not that guy, but, you're pulling a Paulie Malignaggi and you're pulling a Al Bernstein, that's pretty legit right there. Pretty legit. And so the presentation that we're looking to push forward on our BYB Extreme broadcasts is high level. And that's what we're looking for. And people are loving it. And they do a great job over at BKFC. I mean, the bonus king, Chris Lights Out Lytle. Yep. If anybody knows about it, he does. So any success that they have, any success that we have, it's good for both of us because it's great for the sport. And there's great organizations in the UK and in Ireland. And yeah, I see it as the next big thing. And it's a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun. I'd love to, the opportunity comes to more MMA, I'm in, Alex. But I'm reinvigorated by bare knuckle because it's something different. And I've gotten some calls to do some boxing as well. And, it's funny when people say, "Oh, but he's an MMA guy." And I understand that the history and the idiosyncrasies of boxing. It's just not, oh, now there's two hands. I get it. I respect it. And I study it. And I sit next to Paulie Malignaggi. So sitting next to Joe Rogan. But you took me from everything to 8 limbs, now to 2 limbs. Like, should it be like, oh, he's only a boxing guy, you can't do MMA? So finally, I've got some guys who get it, and I'm excited about doing some more boxing as well as bare knuckle boxing as things go on.
Well, that's the awesome thing is that, in the UFC, you learn from Joe. Now you're over here. Now you're learning from Paul. So it's kind of like, it helps you out as well in your career and stuff like that.
No question.
Yeah. Like I was saying with the bare knuckle, as long as they kind of promote it the right way, I think they have it. I mean, like I think Hector Lombard's fighting soon.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And they do have some pretty good cards. The whole thing with Paige. And what's her name? Rachel. I forgot. The ones that were fought in the UFC. And then they
Rachel is Ostrovich.
Yep. With that, just the fact that they were like headliners, I understand like they're the money grab. But I talked to Bryn Hart. I had her on the show, and
that's who Paige fought in her debut.
Exactly.
Right.
I think she should have been the main event, but I mean, she doesn't make, like she said, she didn't make the rules, this and that, but it is what it is. But if they promote it correctly, like I said, it could blow up. Like people are starting to take notice and starting. Look, Jorge Masvidal does the
he does the Bareknuckle MMA.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it's I agree with you 100%. The commissions and the rules and the medicals and everything needs to be on the highest level.
Yep.
And nobody's cutting corners. There was a tragic incident, obviously, post-fight after an event for BKFC, but we're doing our medicals. Burt Watson is there. Mel Valenzuela, our matchmaker at BYB Extreme, he and I talk about it. Like, he's worked with the California Commission. He's worked with Golden Boy. It's the same. You got to do it. Yep. And it's regulated by the states. But fighter safety is always the priority. And it's the priority in bare knuckle boxing. It's a priority in BYB Extreme. And I know Dave Feldman is a priority in his organization as well. So, yeah, it's important for the pre-test to be done properly. For those who may be at risk to compete, to simply not compete and step into the combat zone. Mm-hmm. That said, I had a buddy. It was actually kind of funny. My mom is in assisted living now. And she's horrible with Apple TV. During COVID, I couldn't go in for like 5 months. So I would stop by her room and I carried an Apple TV remote in my car and a TV remote. I'd be outside the window. Mom, what do you want to watch? What do you want to watch? So it's like, Michael, I want to watch you on Friday or whatever. And so this guy, Eric, who's a great guy that works there, calls right before I go on the air, my last show with BYB Extreme. And I'm like, Fernanda, call him, because I'm literally getting ready to go on the air. Fernanda, my wife. And so he puts it on YouTube for her, and she watches it. And I go in a couple of days later, Alex, he goes, well, you know what? Pretty brutal, man. I don't know. And I said, all right, let me tell you something. The gloves were designed to protect the fighter's hands, not their head. And so now we've taken it from that to MMA. And I believe this era of bare knuckle boxing, the blood is accepted more, maybe, I don't want tolerated, it's the wrong word, but maybe expected or accepted, because it took us a while in MMA to be able to understand it and get past it, right?
Well, you get that, and then you also get what, like, it's a different era of, like, movie-wise, television, they show it's more blood. Like, that's what people are fascinated with, but we, like you said, it's expected now. So when you see that, it's not too crazy.
Correct. Yeah. And if you get hit with the bare knuckle, you are going to get hit way less and you're going to be out, but then you wake up and you're going to be okay. And Eric's like, and I explained that to Eric and he goes, okay, that makes sense. He walked out of the room. He's like, I'll watch the next one with your mom. Let me know when it is.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Before I let you go, Mike, because again, like I said, you're a busy guy. Did you have? I think I read something. Did you have a chance to work with WWE?
Yeah.
And I think you would have been good. Was it something that you were looking forward to, or you just it didn't part ways. It just didn't work out at the end of the day.
Joe had a lot to do with it, to be honest. Me not going.
Okay.
I got a call from WWE, and they were interested in me. I'm a Hulk fan, man. I mean, Hulkamania, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, WrestleMania 1, I was in college. Like, we all put in our $4 or whatever we could afford. We had 9 kegs, and I mean, we did it up, right? With 4 TVs. They were probably shitty TVs, but it didn't matter. We were in college. You know, take your vitamins, Hulkamaniacs. And one of my favorite broadcasters is Mean Gene Okerlund. I'll tell you what, Mean Gene. Hulk. And it's like expressions. And you as a hockey guy, I don't know if you know, Gene's son, Todd Okerlund, played on the 1984 U.S. Olympic team. Alex knows his hockey. I like this. this. So, and me and Gene lived in Sarasota, and my first job was in Sarasota. So I actually got to hang out with him a couple times down there.
Pretty cool.
And that might have had a little bit to do with it. But they called me in, they brought me in, and there was a stack of tapes on the executive producer's desk. So they had done their homework. And I was offered a 3-year contract. It was a great contract. They had me do a little test in front of the screen and like, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da. And the offer was there. And I was honored. I was truly honored. Monday Night Raw, I was ready to go. Went back to Dana and Lorenzo. And keep in mind, I'm many years into this voyage on this. It's not the like mega $billion yacht that the WWE has already established. We're still kind of in these waters, but I know that the UFC is going to be landing and docking at a really cool island. And
what year was that? What year?
It would have been about. Well, I was still doing football at Fox, so it would have been about 06 or 07.
Okay.
Because I did the Minnesota Wild to 2003. I did the Fox studio 4 to like 8. And I remember actually also George Greenberg, who's my TV hero, who was at Fox forever, helped to bring the UFC to Fox, and now is with the PFL. George and I had a conversation about, could I do both, meaning could I still do college football and be, you know, a wrestling announcer? And George said, Goldie, you can do whatever in my mind, but what's the Pac-10 at the time? What's the Big 8 going to say? Are they? And I'm like, all right, still okay. So I go on a Monday, and we had a show on Monday on Spike, and then I was to start the next Monday on USA, because the big deal was that the WWE Monday Night Raw was going back to USA. They were leaving Spike.
Okay.
And we were on that spot. So we're at the Hard Rock. We're doing a show. I told Dana and Lorenzo that this is my family. I didn't want to leave Brucey. I didn't want to leave Joe. I didn't want to leave I didn't want to leave Susie. This was my family. But it was a very secure offer that they gave me. And I just told them straight out that this is what's on the table. And Joe, the whole night, Alex, he's like, dude, you're not going to go do porn. Come on, bro. You're not leaving me, man. Don't do porn. I'm like, Joe, like, you know, I'm not like Fear Factor guy like you. I don't have like this, you know, 401k that's got like 18 million trillion dollars in it. Like, and so Joe went up to Dana and Lorenzo's room at the Hard Rock afterwards and said, this is my partner. I don't want to lose him. I don't want to work with some other dude. We've got a great chemistry. And about 2 days later, Dana calls me, and he's in a hotel room in New York with Lorenzo. And Dana goes, all right, I did the math. You're going to have to do 50 shows a year, and this is actually what you're going to get per show. So here's what we can do. And at the time, it was less guaranteed money because we weren't doing as many shows as it turned out. Well, then it got really good because we ended up doing a ton more shows as we grew with the Fox deal. And I ended up staying at the UFC, which I'm glad that I did, because that's when we went, shoo, and we went all over the world. And I mean, just the journey that I was on to be the soundtrack. Gotcha. But yes, I was honored by it. And I would be honored to do it again. I think it's crazy Jimmy Smith is doing it now. Crazy good. Because I really felt bad that Jimmy, you know, let Bellator had his opportunity to finally be at the UFC, work with Joe, and then the UFC brought fighters in, which makes sense, but it meant Jimmy was out. And, you know, Jimmy's a friend. Jimmy welcomed me to Bellator because I entered Bellator as a guest. I didn't enter Bellator as, hey, I'm a UFC guy. Hey, I'm the new guy. And so it was close. It was close. And there was this voicemail. Man, if there's one voicemail, Alex, that I wish I would have saved. I have some from my dad that I still have saved that are hilarious. And I actually, when he passed, we had a great, like, almost roast. And I played a couple of the voicemails. Michael, pick up the goddamn phone. You just texted me, so I know you have your phone. Like, stuff like that. It was Vince McMahon. Mike, this is Vince McMahon. I think that you owe us a bit of an explanation why you, at the last minute, are not going to take our offer. And I was like,
oh, shit.
Exactly. I played it for Dana. Now, that day, Uncle Dana loved me. That was like, because he felt like we won. We kept our guy. But man, Alex, I wish I would have kept that message.
That's
Mike, Vince McMahon.
That's one of those, like, that's oh shit moment, man.
That's exactly right. And I wasn't far, you know, from your, you know, neck of the woods, because I flew in and I went to Stanford, world headquarters. And like I said, it was an absolute honor. Would have been fun. I'd probably still be doing it. But the UFC and everything Dan and Lorenzo did, and Joe, you know, really not wanting to lose his powerful partner is why I stayed with the UFC.
There you go, man. That's awesome. And
Chaels turned it into like I turned down like a $500,000 signing bonus. There was a signing bonus.
Oh, really?
But like, well, Chael, like, I mean, the gangster can like exaggerate a little bit. So,
oh, shit.
You know, it'll be a couple million by the time Chael's done.
But again, Mike, it's before I let you go, it's been a pleasure and an honor to watch you and continue to watch you grow in the sports and just shine. Because again, in the UFC, you shine. Bellator, everywhere you go, you do amazing work, and it's an honor to have you on the show too.
Alex, thank you. So. It means the world to me. Like I said before, this is why I do it. I've always said I do it, you know, for the Fs. I do it for the fighters and the fans. That's what it's all about. Represent the fighters, do my homework, do my prep, and know what they're doing, know what they're training, know what they're working on. Always be up. Michael Bisping fight 10, Michael Bisping fight 18 isn't, oh, it's another Michael Bisping fight. It's like, what is new now? What has changed? And it's people like yourself. It's the fans. It's to entertain the fans with our energy and enthusiasm. That's it. That was it. It's the Fs, the fighters and the fans. So your words mean the world to me. I will be on your podcast again anytime because you're a cool ass dude. We could do our little hockey segment.
Yeah, you know it. And then let's just hope that things.
Yeah, let's just hope that the Devils and the Sharks aren't like 3-10.
Oh God,
3-10. You know, at the time. Let's hope they're 8-3.
Just decent.
Yeah, just decent.
We have to start off for the Devils, and we just gotta get momentum. We gotta do something. I don't know what's gonna happen, but before you leave, I need you to have your famous phrase to kind of end this. Say, it is all over just like that, and then we're gonna end it like that. And that's how it's gonna. This is how the podcast is gonna end. It has to. It has to.
I appreciate it. That was about a 6 on your invitation to me, by the way.
I didn't want to kill. I just wanted you to know. I just didn't.
You didn't want to sound better than me.
No, I wasn't gonna. But you get go ahead. Take it away, Mike. Take it away.
All right, for my powerful partner Alex, this is Mike Goldberg saying so long from this wonderful podcast, and it is all over just like that.
There we go.